Hello, everyone. My name is Dheeraj, and I welcome you all to my new podcast series called Journey of Growth. This series is about getting insights from revenue leaders, be it the founders, operators, SDRs, or AEs. And this is for everybody who has anything to do with the revenue should listen to this. So, beginning with the series today with me, I have Ilya from Heyreach. Hi, Ilya. How are you?
Hi, DJ. I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this series. For those of you who don't know what Heyreach is all about, Heyreach is just a SaaS platform that does LinkedIn automation, and I'm pretty sure that we will dive into it a little bit along with this conversation. But I am actually the Chief Revenue Officer at Heyreach.
So there's a flow which I'm going to follow, Ilya. I will
Yes.
be asking about your journey, then your role as a CRO, then
Mhm.
Heyreach, then LinkedIn, and a lot more stuff which will keep on coming while we talk.
Okay, no problem. I'm okay with that.
Sure. So I think we should start with Ilya, your journey. How did you find yourself in the world of growth and eventually as a CRO at Heyreach?
Yeah, funny, like that's a funny story and probably a podcast all on its own. I was pretty much a salesperson for the majority of my adult life, if you will, where I was focused on the local market by selling insurance. Like that was the job role. One thing led to another, and I explored, and I pretty much found myself in a place where I just get stuck with similar problems repeating one day from another, and just having conversations pretty much with the same people all day long. So nothing creative, nothing new, nothing inspiring, really. So then I took a 4 years ago, actually, I took a like a solid turn, and I said, well, I'm going to become a digital marketing expert. So it was never my intent to become like a CRO. That's now actually how the journey began. But yeah, I started with a local academy that helped me understand the basics of marketing and digital marketing, especially. And then I transferred, I found myself in a position to become the CRO at the current company, which is Heyreach. So pretty much, yes, it's career changer. I'm pretty much a career changer in my early 30s, where I have transferred from local sales insurance expert to pretty much a global revenue leader at this point.
For my audience, there would be some aspirants who would want to understand what a CRO does. So, from their perspective, or that can be for an SDR starting his or her journey, they would want to know how to sell to a CRO. For that, they should understand what exactly is the role of a CRO and how it is different from a sales leader's role, considering the fact that both are chasing revenue.
Absolutely. Well, let me break it down. Like how are things structured in our company? So basically, we are three people in management, where we have the CEO, where you have the CTO, and then you have the CRO. So in our position, since we are in like a SaaS platform, pretty much we have a guy behind the technology and the guy behind the revenue. And my job is pretty much the guy behind the revenue. So in my case, I actually work closely with multiple teams because in my department, you have three segments that you have to fulfill. Like, how are you increasing the pipeline? Meaning, like, how are you generating new leads? How are you converting leads? How long will these new customers stay with you? So in common language, that means that you have marketing, sales, success, and support, right? So basically, these four departments are assigned to me, where I have different leaders in each department. And based on that, those people are building out their own respective teams. So the difference between me and a sales leader would be I am the CRO, but I will be talking with the head of sales, maybe a VP of sales. I don't know, like there's so many made up terms these days. But bottom line, that will be like the person in charge for sales, and that person will report to me at some point. Bottom line, if you want to sell to a person in this position, what you need to understand are which departments is actually this person in charge of. And it's usually going to be the increase of pipeline, increasing the LTV or the lifetime value of the customer, and then retaining the, the customers they have already on board. So if you have an offering that actually helps in any of these three segments, I'd suggest doing a good research, like where and why you can help when you're approaching a person which would be in my position, for instance.
Understood. Yeah, I got in touch with you uh, when I was onboarding for Heyreach, and you just
Yeah,
quickly asked me to jump on the call. I was surprised at first that I'm just dropping an
DJ,
email and somebody as CRO is jumping on the call right away.
DJ, let's be honest. Like there is a differentiation between the state of the company. So, like in startup, everyone is a chief of something. But it's all good. Bottom line, everyone does everything. Everyone has to wear many hats because there's so few people to actually satisfy the demands of the market, of the user base, or whatever it is, right? So in our case, DJ, it's not actually about my title, about jumping over an email. It's more like I'm the best person that you can meet at this point, right? So regardless of my position, this is a startup. So if you go and explore, if you say you are a medium-sized company, right? Then you have different delegations because they have already enablement in place that actually divides the departments. So it's pretty hard to get to a CRO at a well-established company just because those people are just communicating with the internal team. So it's very hard to promote or just get their attention on a specific topic if it's not highly relevant. So yes, in our case, it's a funny story to share that pretty much I had an inquiry and the CRO jumped in. But bottom line, I will always jump in.
How
Yeah,
does the role of a revenue leader changes from a, let's say, a small 100 to 200 people organization as compared to a 10,000 people organization?
what I would say is that there will be a strict differentiation when you set up KPIs, when you set up expectations. Because when you see that type of environment, these people are responsible to manage people who they are not even interacting with. Because, for instance, if I hire like one sales manager and five salespeople, I will not be talking with the salespeople, meaning individual contributors. I will be talking with the manager. So at some point, you have to have an infrastructure that actually showcase or preferably on a click of a button that can actually tell you, well, what's the performance? How are these people performing? What's the expectation that was set and how are we measuring this? For me, at this case, it's more like communicating with the with individual contributors on daily basis. So I pretty much know, and I'm pretty aligned with everything that's going around the company or across departments. But bottom line, bigger companies, more established structure, more complicated to work with, just because like they're not changing the structures that frequently, and they have to have a serious initiative if they want to change something in the system which is in place. So yeah, I believe like there is a lot of bureaucracy behind of it. But yeah, it has to be that way, especially if you're managing lots of people.
Ilya, I understood. I mean, one thing here in a small setup, you have that ability to go out and talk to your customers directly and pick any work which demands your attention or your uh, need, as compared to a larger setup where you have certain responsibilities and you uh, talk internally more rather than externally, right? Within
Yes.
your teammates you have more conversations rather than with your customers directly. Is this something I got right, or
No, you got it perfectly right. And that's the problem with corporations, what I hate about. Because when you're a startup, you look to people, to customers, like as regular people. And if your tone of voice and your friendliness and the way you're communicating, you can be friend with most of them, like me being on your podcast now. When you translate into something bigger, then for the revenue leaders, the customer base becomes numbers, right? So customers actually become numbers. For the individual contributors, yes, there are still humans that they need to be in touch with, but bottom line, they're only going to measure revenue. So now I'm not going to really present myself like, well, DJ was onboarded, but it's more like, well, we've onboarded X amount of customers and we've generated Y amount of revenue. And that's the key differentiation between putting a personal touch into with the customer base and cross departments.
might be a little controversial, but what I understood you just said is that for larger corporations, revenue leaders working there, every customer is just a number, right? The revenue number or a logo, as compared to a small setup where you form a bond with your customers. Because I believe today we are talking and having conversation is the result of that bond, right?
Yeah,
Within hours we were having conversation when I got onboarded to Heyreach, And then again, on the same call, I requested you for this podcast, and today you are here.
Here is a challenge. Here is a challenge, DJ, for everyone listening to this one. And basically, they're like, "Well, Ilya is not right because I know my customers. Name the last 5 customers that you have onboarded." It's that simple. If you don't have a clue, that means that you went into a direction where numbers matter, and people and clients become numbers and a metric that you should follow, right? And there is no like it should not be that way. It has to be that way. Like it's not our option because bottom line, you have to have one person who oversees and overviews everything. And if that person ends up with talking with people, then there will be missing the primary job. What I'm trying to say, it's not a controversial. Like it's the hard truth, right?
Got it. Got it. What's the one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's starting their career in sales, aspiring to be a leader someday? So, what's that one piece of advice?
It's basically if you just focus on the day-to-day activities and never oversee or overview, like what's the goal of the company, how is this aligned with what I should be doing, and how am I contributing in the bigger and the wider picture for the company benefit, then you will probably end up being an individual contributor all of your life. Just because, like people who are going into that management role at some point, they take responsibilities. And for instance, a responsibility taken by a revenue leader when they make a mistake, and everyone makes mistake, let's be honest. So when they make a mistake, it costs thousands, if not millions of dollars to the company. When an individual contributor makes a mistake, it's going to cost a couple of hundreds, maybe a couple of thousands, but that's just about it. So you have to take risks, but then you always have to be aligned on the wider and the bigger picture of how am I moving this thing forward. And it's not going to be how many meetings I have booked, but it's more like going to be, well, if I start booking meetings this way and that increases the chances of getting a conversion, that's the mindset that's going to set you on the right path.
So, Ilya, I understood from our conversation that somebody who's in the leadership role will have more responsibilities, and it
Mhm.
directly proportional to the fact that whatever the actions they take will have more impact in terms
Absolutely.
of quantity or quality.
Yes, that is true. Always.
Yeah, so with this, I think we will move on to the next section where I will talk more about Heyreach. You already told us what Heyreach does, right? But would you want to dig more deeper into this? How does it empower sales teams?
Of course. The LinkedIn automation, it's pretty much, and that's what Heyreach actually does. So what we offer is actually a tool that actually takes care of all of that. So basically, you just connect your LinkedIn account to the system. You build out or import a lead list like a Sales Navigator search bar or import it in a CSV doesn't really matter. And then the most important part is actually how you start a campaign. So let's do a test campaign just for the sake of visualization of the audiences. I'm going to create a test campaign with a lead list, and I'm going to select my account only. So when I select my account, the next step is to actually say to the tool, what do you want this account to do for you, right? And against the lead list that you have planted. Now, if we stick to the same presumption that we're going to keep things natural on LinkedIn, then I have to do engagement actions before I actually send a connection request. So I will probably start with a follow. I will wait for 1 day. Then the next day, I will do a view profile. Then the next day, I'm going to like one of the recent posts, which should not be older than 3 months because it will be weird to like post older, like 10-year-old posts. So if the post is fresh, then I would like it. And then I want to send a connection request. On the connection request side of things, you can add personalization. Bottom line, I'm not going to overdo on the software how it does things, but pretty much you can set up an automation that combines profile engagements, which are mandatory these days, with messages. And this is how a standard Heyreach flow looks like. Once I set this, it's going to be fully automated, running in the background on specific days, specific hours, and then it will comply with the LinkedIn limits which are in place. Right? So LinkedIn has its own limits, and we always respect them. Meaning you can only reach 800 people tops on a monthly basis with one LinkedIn account. That we solve it by assigning multiple accounts. That's all it is. Additionally, this opens up another opportunity where it's not only about the salespeople using the tool, it's about the CEOs using this tool, because the CEO has the highest authority in the company and highest chances of getting a response, which is why, but the CEO doesn't have time to manage his LinkedIn campaigns. So when you connect an account, you can assign a different person from your company to manage your LinkedIn outbound sequence, but it will still not allow them to have direct access to the LinkedIn account of the owner. So yeah, that's what Heyreach is all about.
So nice of you to walk us through the platform, Ilya. I think that would help many people to understand how the flow works. One thing which I really liked about Heyreach is that working under the norms of the platform, it saves your profile, because a lot of people I speak to as an agency owner that we will be using LinkedIn as a channel to outreach people. Their first concern is, if we use some sort of automation, will my account be banned? Right? Then I fetch one of the response that was given while you guys were listed on AppSumo, that not even a single account has been banned. That was, I guess, some 8 to 9 months back, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So I show them that screenshot. This is the platform I'm using. You won't get banned.
Here is the thing with LinkedIn. I challenge anyone to go and do 100 view profiles per day manual. Just go and click on buttons on profiles. Your account will get restricted if you're doing that. In a sense, it will be much more safer to use an automation who is always going to take care of the LinkedIn limits and you not crossing them, rather than you doing things on your own. And bottom line, LinkedIn is not actually banning accounts. What LinkedIn will tell you is provide an ID that you're a real person. That's all there is. Once you provide the ID, you get ID verified and your account is back. So banning accounts is not a thing for LinkedIn, because LinkedIn will never like to downgrade on the customer base that they're having, because they're losing a database. So with that in mind, it's like going to be how careful you are. We are extremely careful because tens of thousands of people trusted their LinkedIn accounts with us. So we just improve the system and always monitor what's important for LinkedIn and to stay within those limits.
Got it. My next question is obviously about the growth numbers. If you are willing to share any milestones on revenue insights.
Sure, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are now currently at 3 million at ARR. We were at 2 million at ARR before 60 days tops. So it took us 2 months to reach an extra million. Before that, we were 6 months from 1 million to 2 million, right? And bottom line, once we launched it, it took us like 9 months to get from zero revenue to 1 million, then 6 months to get to 2 million, then 2 months to reach to 3 million, right? So basically, those are the most important milestones. At the very beginning, we also did like a lifetime deal promotion of the tool, just to get brand recognition, just to say to people, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do. For that purpose, we launched a deal on AppSumo, a very famous platform, and based on that, like, we started growing from that point.
So how do you take it? I have also done in the past, and I know a lot of folks into the SaaS who use AppSumo as one of the channels. Is it more about the numbers there, or getting a set of users who help you with in your early stage, or how does that work for you guys?
AppSumo is great for idea validation when you have a working solution in place, market validation, which people will purchase me and who will get activated, and then there is the money, right? But not just the money, it's the brand recognition. Well, this tool was actually on AppSumo. Lots of people purchased it, and basically now you have an open conversation between the tool creators and the community that actually is purchasing. So if it's not working, people will comment, well, this thing is not working. So bottom line, it's a great for early stage, because if you do it in later stages where you have an ongoing revenue, that means that you have two confronting offers on the market. One of being monthly recurring and the second one being a lifetime deal. And if you have two comforting, you can not just anticipate. You will probably even lose money, but yes, you will get extra cash inflow, and that will be just for the month, but nothing aside from that. Most SaaS products should launch at the early stages. Once the beta is done and they have onboarded, for instance, 50 users, so they know like the obvious bugs and the system functionalities before they scale it to a platform such as Apps.
Got it. Got it. And what's that one growth channel that has really blasted the growth for you? If you are,
Referrals.
of course, spilling some beans.
Referrals. Yeah, I'm going to be quite honest with you. It's referrals, and I'm propagating this. Here is the problem, DJ. Every tool presents themselves in a way that they want to be seen. And that is like, it's all good. That's your brand, that's your authority, that's your tone of voice, that's everything. And it's all good, but that's good for marketing, right? For sales, it's not about how you are pitching your product or selling your product. It's about what other people are going to say about your product in the first place. So I've noticed this in the very early stages because bottom line, there is no point in me selling the product. I mean, yeah, I can sell the product obviously, but the user will end up with the product on his own doing things. So there is a ratio between who closes a deal on a SaaS product. You have, in my opinion, this is like nothing to be backed up by numbers, but it's going to be 25% is the salesperson, 50% is the product, and 25% are the support and the success channels. Meaning, how are people succeeding with the product that they have purchased in the first place and whether the product is delivered. You can pretty much sell anything to anyone as long as you are lying. But what's the point? Because you will lose them. You will lose trust in the brand, trust in the person, and trust overall because they will leave 1 month after that. So there is no point in that. The point is to get people to understand, adopt, use, and win with your product. So bottom line, we saw that, and I was like, well, in my input into the sales process is not that big, that I'm going to ask other people to actually validate my product, build out use cases, and the audience will recognize that and find adoption for themselves. Which is why we were very high on incentivizing those collaborations in a win-win situation for everyone. So pretty much it looks like the creator itself it's not paying for the tool. They create use cases and everyone interested, they basically get a discounted price. So it pretty much means, well, if this person is saying that and it's not costing me a fortune, I would give this a try. Right. So we've created that environment. We introduced a lot of integrations, integrating with other tools. Basically, those are company referrals, not just people referrals. And then you have the affiliate channels. Aside from that, I highly do not recommend anyone spending money on ads, expensive salespeople, or or heavy outbound on a market that they have not validated at first. So you have to validate the market, and you use all of these channels after your second million, give or take. If you reach there, pretty much scale it up once you have initial data. Most companies, even the funded ones, make a common mistake. We have the budget, now we will hire people to blast the growth, but it's not going to happen. And most commonly, those companies will fail by losing funds.
What is that one channel that hasn't worked for Heyreach? You guys might have tried, or something which is really hyped up in the industry that many companies or founders or operators say that they should try or they have tried, but you guys don't consider it as something which will work for you or have not worked.
Cold email outreach. That's pretty easy. Yeah. Cold email outreach didn't work for us because we were aiming for an audience which received a lot of emails. We tried to create a copy that was not resonant for them, for the receivers. So it's probably like lack of technical knowledge at that time. But so when you do it is like when you know that you have 10 paying customers, which are CROs at an XYZ company, and now you scale it because you have chance to prove it. Before that, you are just shooting blanks all over the place and pissing a lot of people. A lot of people are going into that direction just because it's cheap. It's cheap to buy burner domains, it's cheap to buy to set up like Gmail accounts, and it's cheap to get an instantly or a smart lead account and connect it all together and start sending emails all over the place. But the truth is, if you hit below 1% reply rate, this means that 99% are disagreeing with you and what you're saying. So yeah, that's something that didn't work for us for two obvious reasons. We did not have a validated offer and pretty much strong use case why these people should talk with us. And second is that we executed poorly, where didn't create a hyper-targeted audience that actually would make sense to create a relevant bridge between this is you, this is us, and this is why we should work together. So yeah, cold email. And aside from that, like the obvious reasons, you have the email deliverability issues that are ongoing basis now. And second is that too many people are doing it, wrongfully, if I might add. So even the people hitting the inbox, they're hitting with non-offers that will never resonate with that audience. So yeah, it's a saturation problem, if I'm being honest.
Got it. So you meant it's first the channel problem because too many people are doing it, and there are some restrictions now from the Google and Microsoft, and then there's a value prop issue which is there.
It's going to be the easiest to set, easiest to execute, highest chances of getting a failure. That's all there is. When we started at later stages on a validated audience, we started generating one positive response on 20 people reached. So you can imagine the difference. But now we spend an awful lot of time in the list creation, awful lot of time into the copy, and awful lot of time into the execution. So now we make the channel work. Yes, there is the competition. So don't everyone doing outbound, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's email, whether it's cold calling, just mind that you are not just competing your offer against their challenge, you are competing with the other people who are also trying to reach out, which is all why a lot of people will say you have to stand out. And the standing out is based on the quality of the audience built and the copy that was written initially.
With this, Ilya will move on to the next section where my
Sure.
questions will be focused more around LinkedIn as a channel, as a platform. When you are promoting an outreach, right, for which LinkedIn has put up some restrictions, you are competing against their core revenue model, which is running ads.
So LinkedIn has actually three channels on which you can reach out to the potential audience, right? The first one being the ads, where you pay LinkedIn money to put your offer in front of certain people. That's number one. Number two is actually the social posting, where you actually organically post on like post, comment, stuff like that, and then you get to a certain level of reach to a specific audience, and then you have the outbound, right? Are these three competing between themselves? I wouldn't say so. Why is that? Because the ads are actually converting with the social posting. Meaning, if people post frequently, they will get a bigger exposure, and LinkedIn doesn't actually want that because LinkedIn is not making a profit out of it, which is why the social posting is actually competing with the ads. On the third part, where you have the outbound, to an extent, and this is going to sound controversial, but we actually help LinkedIn to sell more subscription on the Sales Navigator, because the Sales Navigator will retrieve better quality data and then use an automation to actually execute this data. But we are not converting one to another. And obviously, the best thing, these channels, I'd say they should be complementary, just because you have a specific audience which you're running ads, and to everyone interested, you're running outbound campaigns. So in that way, you are combining your paid advertising with your inbound, with your outbound. But yeah, it's not a direct competition.
Understood. I must say, you folks are the backbone of many sales teams, right? Using LinkedIn as a channel.
Yeah.
What's that one mistake that gets people instantly ignored when they try to reach out to somebody? And do you have any unique insights from Heyreach's data points?
Of course. The most common mistake that people are making, they're treating LinkedIn as a communication channel, and not as a social platform. So here is the difference. If you reach out to someone over a cold call or over an email, you're pretty much utilizing a communication channel. But when you do LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a social platform. So you have to respect the rules of the social element when you're reaching people, opposed to just start messaging. One thing that we also noticed is that people are self-centric or customer-centric, which means like, I am Ilya, I run an outbound tool, I will help you with XYZ. Customer-centric means like, you are a CRO, you must be having problems with XYZ. But the truth is, there is a third actually point of people which should be utilizing, and that's like the challenge-centric. The challenge centric is meaning like, I know who you are, this is who I am, and this is something that I'm working. This specific challenge is something that I help people solve. Is this thing relevant for you? So yeah, that's all there is. Additionally, about statistics that I can share that we've seen is, for instance, people are always spending too much time and thinking whether I should send personalized notes in the connection request versus blank one. So that's one of the most common and most discussed. Based on 3 million connection requests analyzed for a past period of time, we've seen that personalized connection requests usually get 22% acceptance rate on average across board from everyone, and blank connection requests typically get 27% acceptance rate. The quality of the account that you're using also interferes on the success of the channel. So, for instance, if you're using a typical EA, SDR, BDR type of account, you should not aim for more than 30% acceptance rate, because it's not about you. It's about all of the SDRs and BDRs who actually just put a bad name to the role. But if you're using a CEO, founder, C-level account, then you can expect an acceptance rate of 50%. So that's another statistic. And a third one that I can share, going against saturated markets. So if you go on in the US market, trying to target like a pretty much like a specific job role, and you compare that, for instance, with the Middle East, like the Middle East will always have a better acceptance rate, better reply rate, because not that many people actually message them on LinkedIn. So you don't have a saturation. So in a nutshell, there are a lot of statistics that can be used. The most relevant ones are: use a quality account with the highest domain authority that you can find in your company, if possible. Use a copy that is actually not selling, respecting like everything, and just have in mind against which audience are going after. So that's all it is.
You
All
know,
good now.
this was in my mind to ask you. I think this would be useful for SDRs out there. Uh, let's say I have to start an outreach. Uh, I have a profile which is fairly new, approximately 400-500 connections I might have. How do I go about starting the outreach for my job? Is there any few things that I should follow?
Definitely. You should, if you have a picture which is from your graduation on LinkedIn, you should definitely change that with a professional image, because it's not typical, it's not normal. You have a background banner on your LinkedIn profile. You should definitely make that about your company and what is the company actually doing. You should have at least 500 connections before you actively start reaching out to people, because the acceptance rate on people with less than 500 connections, it's not going to get above 25%, because people are just doing fresh accounts all the time, not doing a great job. And then you have to have a decent headline, because that's what people will read out in their inbox. That's what people will read out in messages. Here is a cool strategy pretty much anyone can adopt. So if you're an SDR and you want to reach out to a specific CRO, right? You basically set up an account-based targeting, where you target, let's say, 100 companies, and instead of just going to the CRO, you are going to the SDRs within that company, because those people are at your level, so the acceptance will be much higher. So basically, the strategy goes: you add as many people from a specific company as you can, without any specific goal. And then when you go after the connecting with the CRO on the top level management, you already have hundreds of mutual connections with them. So the acceptance rate increases, and the chances of getting a response drastically increase in that manner.
Got it. Ilya, but I think this is a right approach. This is a decent approach where you
Yeah,
say a peer-to-peer outreach should be done.
yeah,
That is all about relation building, I believe.
of course.
But don't you think if as an SDR I have to bring 10 to 15 SQLs in a month, and
Mhm.
let's say I am using LinkedIn as my primary channel or one of the major channels out there, if
Yeah.
I spend, let's say, 2-3 months, which is a very risky way of getting started into my job, if I spend 2 months, 3 months, my manager or my CEO won't understand that I am trying to build a relations. I understand this might be something useful for a high level accounts, but for a
Mhm.
small to mid level accounts, how do I balance between, let's say, a rapport building with my prospects while in a mind that I have to pitch my product at some point?
Yeah, great question. Spend as much time as you can to create a valid lead list. A valid lead list should be created like 1 month upfront to create 800 people which are hyper targeted, hyper relevant. That, in your opinion. So basically, you don't have to exceed that number because your account cannot deliver more than 800. So why bother creating thousands? Create 800 only per month. Once you have your 800, do like 50 profiles checkup. Like, how should I position the tone of voice into the copy? Once you have that, then you go with the challenge-centric copy, which says, I know who you are, this is who I am, this is what I've been working with. And then you put that all into a structure.
Got it. This also, brings in one important point. In, let's say, I've started in an organization, I can't simply just get into the outreach part and reach out to the CXOs, right? I need to build some sort of a content, some sort of a authority I need to build.
Of course, LinkedIn is your business card. And when people decide whether to accept or to deny a connection request, they visit the profile. And if you are no authority or nothing that ever mentioned, you probably look like a fake profile in the first place. So you have to be active on the platform. You don't have to be an influencer. You just have to write things about relevant topic. And since we have like all of these cool AI tools out there, now it's pretty easy to create a decent piece of content that will actually stick and be glued to your profile. So which is why if you want to do LinkedIn, be active on LinkedIn. Don't just treat LinkedIn as a communication channel where you're expecting 800 people to be sent and 10 qualified leads. It's not going to work either way. For instance, we did a campaign where we reached 400 people and we've generated 50 leads out of it.
Whoa.
Right? And the
Crazy.
reason behind of it is that this 400 was the most like relevant. And if I do that, so basically, does that mean that I'm covered for the next 5 months because I have 10 people per month? No, it does not. The next month, the management will actually ask me for 20 SQLs, right? So basically, you see my point. It's creating relevancy on the hyper-targeted audience by going with a message that says, I told you. So pretty much, when you go into a conversation, you have to be natural and you have to just be like nurturing the prospects because you're building a relationship. You are not closing a deal. You will close a deal after that person meets with you, after that person asks an offer from you, and then we will just discuss on the offer side and the value of it. Yeah.
How do you think is the future of outreach looking like now with a lot of noise here and there?
Databases such as Apollo, Zoom Info, and everyone providing contact information based on certain criteria, those will get downgraded. Why is that? Because now people are looking into relevance, social signals, intent data. This is where the outreach will go. Basically, it will become in a place where a typical salesperson cannot, and should not do outreach. It should be orchestrated by a go-to-market expert or a GTM expert. Like, these are the valid data sources. We're not just going to purchase plain data and try our luck. We're going to make a connection based on a certain criteria that actually makes sense. Once we do that, the marketing team will create outbound copies, and it will be a job of the SDR, of the salesperson, to actually nurture those prospects. Because these days, I think that it's commonly adopted solution that an SDR should do list building, copywriting, nurturing. And that person is not good at all of those things. If we are lucky, he will be good at one thing only, right? So pretty much all of these things will have a breakdown, which is why I believe the static databases will fall off or come short. And then people will focus on intent-based signals, valid additional data points. Why is this relevant? And it's going to be like additional teams included into the whole outbound, not just to be a part of the sales department. I think we are at the end of the conversation with so many insights that I have to put up in my mind and bring it in the front of audience through this podcast. With this, I want to thank you, Ilya, for taking out time and quickly saying yes to me on over the call, that first call we had, and sharing some deep insights with us. Thank you so much. DJ, it was a real pleasure, and it was a good recap for me to go through and just revisit every moment that we had. And it was a very joyful thing to be on this podcast. Thank you for inviting.